Now and forever, we bring IT to life.
Welcome everybody to our monthly Connect with Remedy webinar series. This month's session is on our HR case management, and Steve and Hal will be taking us through this. I'll turn it over to Steve to introduce themselves.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and good day, good morning, good evening, good night to everybody that's joining. Seriously, thank you very much, and apologies about the slight delay. I've got with me a good colleague, Hal, and we're going to take you through our latest acquisition, and we're also going to explain a little bit about the products and give you a demo as well. So with that in line, this is the agenda that we've got in mind. We just wanted to explain and share some of the challenges as well, just so that you can understand and appreciate how difficult some of your HR colleagues have as a job to move these things forward. So with that in mind, for those of you who didn't hear about the news, we announced the acquisition back on September the 9th, an acquisition that we made with a good partner, Column Technologies, to acquire HR Case Management, or Case HR as it's known. The great thing about it is that it's a mature product, and it's been around for 5 years. So we're actually building and advancing upon, what is established thought leadership technology, and we're bringing it into the BMC fold to help take advantage of some of the capabilities that we've naturally developed over the last few years as well. So, and if you bear in mind and think about it with our HR transformation strategy and message, the thing about it is that as organizations embark on digital transformations, the role of HR really changes. And so improving employee productivity is really a key driver with modern digital enterprise, and the HR department owns this initiative. So the result of that is that puts a lot more pressure on HR departments across the globe to transform at a faster rate than before. And so for HR to be the transformation partner that the business needs, HR needs to standardize, needs to optimize, and automate common HR processes so they can focus on strategy. And they obviously need to be able to do that quickly, because in this day and age, we're all becoming less patient as people. That said, the IT department often leads the charge when it comes to digital transformations. And really, as part of digital transformation, it really requires organizations to embrace new technologies and deliver modern, intuitive user experiences to employees. Unfortunately, without that vision, the strategy and leadership, digital transformations can be misguided. So at this point, really, I just want to move on to the next screen and just talk about this as a, to help solidify why BMC are engaging in this, with our strategy. This is actually based on a report that was developed in 2012 by MIT Sloan and Capgemini. They actually studied hundreds of businesses that were in varying stages of their digital transformation, and they were actually rated over these two axes. So you can see the digital intensity and the transformation intensity. What they actually found, though, was that the top right quadrant is where organizations were considered to be strong in both. And they coined the phrase digitarati as part of this study. The thing about that is they actually found that companies that were in this space were actually found to be 26% more profitable, and actually the valuation of the organization was also found to be 12% higher. So it was seen that actually becoming disruptive with technology was a good thing and actually added value to the company as a whole. And so we want to make sure that, we help organizations like yourselves out there become more digitally disruptive and add more value to your organization. So let's take that into the HR world. So when we think about the fact that HR needs to provide lots of information at the fingertips around, around the various policies that HR manages. When you look at this screen, you can see that, why people may have considered HR as just an admin function, it's really a lot more strategic around that. And you've got three groups here: human resources, payroll, employee relations, and all of these major groups really have to work independently of each other. And actually for good reason, really. The types of transactions, the requests or cases that they work often require different subject matter experts and also different data privacy requirements. Yet at the same time, as an employee, I just want a simple standard way to go and be able to do that. And for transformation, we need to unlock human productivity and drive engagement to get the best of both worlds. So the great thing about it is that actually with BMC HR Case Management, we support all of these three areas, and we actually provide the data security, put my teeth back in, the data security and the confidentiality model specifically to each department. We provide the ability to give a holistic view to an employee across all of these departments as well. And then we also provide a unified portal into HR for the employee that's available on any device. So just to come on to some of the challenges that shared services, and typically a lot of organizations, HR organizations, adopt shared services as a methodology. And it's really designed to operationalize the administrative side of HR and free up the subject matter experts to focus on more strategic activities. So let's take a quick look at some of the key trends. So firstly, when we, these are the top 5 trends that were published earlier this year. And really we see process optimization as the key aspect for HR organizations, and to be honest, for a lot of organizations adopting shared services methodology. It's really about trying to make the common transactions more efficient and add more value to the organization. When we look at the digital transformation aspects, we, in our daily environment, we can see that, we're becoming more, we can do things on our phones, whether it's booking flights, ordering taxis with our Uber, using Airbnb, and we want that same capability and ease of use and slick modern design as we have in our personal life. But unfortunately, organizations aren't always as quick to adopt because it needs, considerably more work. So we have that issue. Now, the good thing about it is that by having technologies that enable digital transformation and that provide the process optimization capabilities, it really gives us that data to be able to start looking at, the analytics side of how we make that continuous improvement going forward. So what you're going to see as part of the next few releases of HR Case Management is how we improve these top 3 areas. And so specifically, when we look at what the market is telling us, the focus really is around helping organizations with their workflow management and their social and collaboration capabilities. And already we're building on Column's existing technology to improve both of these areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about our upcoming beta, where we're actually exploiting these areas even further. So for those of you that aren't familiar with shared services as a methodology and as a mindset, I just really wanted to draw out where BMC sits in this space. So a lot of customers go, I've got Oracle and I've got SAP and Workday as HR management systems and human capital management systems. But you can see there's a lot of touching points and communities. And where BMC sits with HR case management is to actually focus on this one area. It's really about providing the support for the requests and the cases and the investigations around everything that's HR related. So we actually complement the Oracles and the SAPs and the Workdays of this world, because we're like a service desk specifically for HR. So it is a different specific place in the market as a HR technology tool. So what we'll do is we'll just come on and we're going to have I'll just give you a brief overview, and then we're going to actually go into the products as well. So as I mentioned, just really it's about having an environment, a service center or a contact center that's super easy to use, super intuitive, that the workforce can actually connect with and use, whether on their phone or their tablet or via browser. It's got to be easy so that customers can, or rather employees, can actually see the policies that organizations offer and be able to act and make those requests against those policies if possible. And it needs that workflow automation. It needs that standardization and automation at the back end to be able to help HR really deliver quickly and have that control and that auditability, because things like auditability are super important in the HR world. An interesting point is that there was a report done by Gartner, a survey, and actually at the customers that they surveyed, 56% of those organizations needed every single HR transaction to be approved. Now, from a process standpoint, that's a considerable amount of extra work, and it has a lot of potential for blockages. So even freeing up that capability, the ability to hand off between different teams, is super important when we're trying to address HR cases. So at this point, I'm just going to touch on some high-level functions and differentiators with our products, and then I'm going to turn it over to Hal. So one of the things that since acquiring the technology, we've already brought in, we're already integrating MyIT for HR to become the user portal. And so obviously we give the capability now to have a self-service app for end users. Within the product, there's been a fantastic workflow automation capability. It actually comes with an inbuilt process designer. So the designer's unique and specific to HR, but it allows HR technology tools administrators and business analysts to be able to design processes so that they can engage the right teams at the right time, and that they can engage, where necessary, keep the data private and confidential to the relevant teams. If you think about it, sort of, well, I'll come on to the security a little bit later, but as part of that workflow automation, there's already a good number of templates that have been put in there that organizations can leverage to be able to and build upon. So it puts that structure. One of the things that you find with HR sort of cases and requests and organizations as a whole is the standardization, there isn't really sort of a set standardization as such, and companies have different processes and policies in place. So the tool is actually a lot more flexible to allow for these different policies and different process flows. So the templates that are there often serve as guidance for you to be able to build out and make those processes relevant to either a type of user, so maybe it's a contingency worker, so there's specific policies for that, or maybe a union worker, or maybe based on the location, your geo, you need a template that's relevant to that country. So this product supports all of those capabilities as such. And so it also provides the ability to have to take advantage of the shared services delivery model, allowing for the roles, the communications in between the different teams, and then to be able to report back against those different solution lines, those different organizations as well. And we'll give you a brief showcase of some of the technology that's going to be coming up in the beta as well. So one of the other things as part of eForms, which ties in nicely with our digital transformation, is that eForms are really electronic documents. If you think about the case of, even from filling in a form to say that you want to join the local gym, we've got the ability to add this capability so that we can have all of that information stored electronically against the cases, and actually means that it makes life easier from an audit and control perspective. With that, we also have the ability to sort of measure ourselves and see how we're doing against our SLA thresholds. To be honest, a lot of the times SLA, whilst it's important, it's a byproduct of having great process and standardization of process. There are certain times when it's not about getting the case resolved as quickly as possible. Whilst that's important, it's more about doing it in the right way and having the full audit trail and having all of the relevant tick boxes done and making sure that both the end user and the staff working the case are happy. So we provide that capability. It's it can be used to help see where activities take longer than desired. And then, of course, the final thing that everybody wants to know, whether on-premise or in the cloud, is, is my information protected? Is it secure? And we're bringing in a lot more functionality to help with that. So things like encryption of confidential data. We have a confidentiality data tab that allows us to hide personally identifiable information, and we provide a separate audit trail against that, such that if people even look at the information, we can record that activity. So, and there are times when certain cases need to be handed over to different teams. Say, for example, legal needs to get involved. We can lock down those cases or that information pertaining to that case relevant to the specific team. So there's a lot of great functionality that is over and above Remedy as a platform. And so one of the key takeaways is this is really built on HR best practices, and it's not just an extension of a platform, because that doesn't offer the granularity and the richness of content that HR organizations need. So at this point, I really just want to hand over to Hal, and we'll pick up afterwards and we'll go through some Q&A type scenarios. So over to you, Hal.
All right. So let's first start off. We're going to go through a couple of different roles that use HR case management. And like Steve said, traditionally, if we go in our HR partners, they're using a lot of different solutions to help employee issues, to work through inquiries, changes in life, events that happen at the workplace. And traditionally, a lot of this is happening via phone and email. And a lot of this information is not getting tracked. We might have Excel spreadsheets. We might have a database that we built in the past. So a lot of information is in a lot of different places. And HR case management is now going to bring this all to one place. And one of the big drivers that we see with our customers today is, hey, I want to provide a self-service portal for my employees to look at policies and be able to interact with HR in a way that they're used to interacting today. Because a lot of folks today are using tablets and phones and they're using browsers, they're doing social collaboration. So what we want to do is provide a nice interface that they're used to seeing, a nice, comfortable interface, and to be able to interact on the devices that they choose to interact with. So you've got to imagine that these organizations today aren't doing that today. And so the thought of being able to request a service via phone is something that they don't have. And this is one of the things that BMC is going to bring forward, is this ability to be able to provide a self-service interface to these HR departments so that they go ahead and have these interactions. So with that in mind, I'm going to go from the employee perspective, and right now I'm showing a browser, but what you see could be displayed on any device via MyIT. And what we're going to be able to do is peruse what the offering is from our HR partners. It could be any type of benefits that I'm entitled to. It could be that I might have issues, maybe I need to make an update based on what I do for work, or maybe I want to go and I want to make a request to change access from an internal operations standpoint for HR. So a lot of different services that are pre-built within the HR case management application that we're going to be able to provide. And via this interface, employees can be able to interact with HR. It might be the very fact that I want to peruse and see an offering from an insurance perspective. And one of the things that we offer at BMC that was exciting to me is that we offer pet health insurance. And that was one of the things that as I was onboarding with BMC is some of these things. And so naturally employees are going to be drawn and want to see what's available and how this is going to benefit them, right? Because this is the reason why we choose to work for the organizations we work for today. So as they make these inquiries, or as they look at events that change in the employee workplace or just in the life-changing event, I'm going to be able to provide content from our HR specialist back to the employee. It might be any policy-based information, such as benefit information like insurance, or it might mean that, hey, how do I go and update my employee information, or actually how do I read my paycheck? So any of that policies and procedures that HR provide are going to be able to be right at the fingertips of our employee. They're able to look at the information, if there's links provided, images, video. Help me get through this process because I'm very interested in signing up for this service. If I dig into this particular request, I might see other offerings. So think of it today as you go shopping at any of your online retailers. As I'm looking at a particular service, or if I'm interested in buying a particular product, there might be other similar benefits or other similar inquiries that I might want to make to the HR department. So things that are commonly linked. You know, if I'm looking at pet insurance, maybe I want to look at making other changes to benefits. Maybe I want to look at the fitness club. So things that people are commonly looking for, I'm going to associate to this particular request. So if I go through this knowledge, I go through this solution, and it doesn't help. If it intrigues me and I want to sign up for it, or I'm able to self-help, I can go ahead and make this request here. Okay, so I'm going to, I'm interested in pet insurance for my dog Fido. Okay, I'm going to submit this. And traditionally, a lot of the interactions that if we're working with our employees, we may have in a day-to-day basis. We want to go back and I want to be able to track requests. We're going to be able to submit surveys. If once the request has been satisfied, they'll be able to submit surveys to through this interface. So I can interact via my device of preference, and so a lot of that makes it easier for what I do. Because think of it this way, when we deal with a lot of organizations, not everybody's tethered like we are today. We're all at a desktop and we're using a desktop, but a lot of organizations, they've got a lot of employees that would never touch, that don't have access to a desktop or laptop. So they may have their only access to talk to HR is via the phone or via a smart interface. And so this is a great way to interact with your employees, to bring them close to the organization, and to provide that support, that level of support that they're already seeing from IT, and we want to bring that to HR as well. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch roles, and I'm going to come in as the agent. So this is that Tier 1 support, the contact center. And we provide a browser interface that allows the HR specialist or agent to do their daily work. And what happens is all these different types of transactions come in. It might be an email or someone submitted a request via email. Obviously, they're going to be able to create or work with phone inquiries, as well as these self-service transactions or transactions from other systems. So they log into their interface. They're able to see their work. They're able to view the work as they would like to. I can go in and say, look, see all my email requests that come in. So we've got full text search built in that allows us to drill down and create views of data the way we want to work with our data. It's going to give that HR agent the ability to see all the work. Okay? So go back and just look at my request. As we're looking at this, we get a preview. So traditionally, I've had, if I look at some of our customers, they've got these big, large Excel spreadsheets of how they look at these transactions. And I get to see and work straight from this console, whether it's adding a note or sending an email, right from this work. And I can also, as a manager, actually come in and reassign cases as needed. If someone were to be out sick or couldn't handle some of the cases that they want to do reassignment, they could do so. One of the things we talked a bit, and I'm going to step aside here because there's a couple of things that Steve brought up. This concept of the employee, this concept of the person. So traditionally, when we work with our customers, we're bringing in data from the typical HR management systems, this being PeopleSoft, SAP, Workday, other different systems. We'll bring in that employee data, and some of that data is good for allowing someone to have access to the system, to know where they work from an organization standpoint. But some of this information we use to drive behavior, right? So think of it when I logged in as Victor Goodman and I submitted my pet insurance request. Well, pet insurance for BMCs is only offered in the U.S. And so Steve's been looking at it himself, being in a foreign country, that offering is not available to him, right? So we're able to tailor what content gets out to the employee. So if I'm a full-time employee in the U.S., I'm going to see services from a 401k standpoint. But if I'm a part-time or union employee based in the UK or some other country, that content can be completely different. They have different savings plans. They have different health plans. So remember, we're going to be able to leverage that data, and we're going to be able to do it globally. And this is something that in the past, HR, if you look at the different organizations from benefits to employee relations to payroll, each of those are going to be different based on geographical location or by division. So a lot of those policies and those things, they get tracked in different systems, and we don't have a single one-point place to go look at this information. And this is what HR case managers are going to bring today. Confidential data, and we're going to speak to this. And why HR case management? One of the big challenges in the past when HR organizations have looked at solutions, traditionally they have been onboarded into IT solutions. And the challenge with this is that because I'm in an IT solution, there's a lot of private information that's in that data, in those systems about the employee, or in the cases it could be HIPAA information, it could be salary information, it could be national ID, employee ID, it could be a lot of things that are happening from an HR standpoint we really don't want to share with other employees. For instance, there might be an ethics issue that we're tracking, a legal issue. We want all that information to be private, and we really can't have that in a public system. So HR specialists, when they have access to data, it's based on a need to know. So built in with this is we've got this concept of role-based access. So if you belong to a specific department, I may or may not, even though I'm in HR, I may or may not have access to that data. So that was really important to our customers, and that's built into the solution. And it's very difficult to model that in other call center technologies because this concept of security is they don't have that built in, and you would have to build in a lot of workflow to make that work. Okay, so now that we've kind of taken you aside, I'll come back to the HR specialist. I'm going to particularly open this case from the employee. So when we come into the case, this is going to look traditionally like an incident or a ticket or a case in our vernacular from an HR perspective. We have the information coming in from the portal, right? We've already pre-categorized everything for that HR specialist to begin their work. So as I pick this up, I'm just going to assign this to myself, put it in work in progress. Now, what happened is because we've got these 350 best practice templates built in, we're going to allow that HR specialist, they're going to have a starting point. So right now, they probably have an idea of the typical cases that they handle, and they're going to have policies that they use as knowledge to work through that case. Well, what we are allowed them to do is build in those policies, best practice procedures within the solution. The template's already there. It's a matter of filling in the data for that particular organization. And so what we do from that perspective is we're going to help drive that agent, and we're going to help speed up the process of how they do work. And we're going to provide the task, the to-do list, if you will, when I'm handling this particular inquiry for pet insurance. And these tasks are going to be interactive. The tasks themselves could be things for me to do to make sure that things I check, to make sure that I follow the policies and procedures for my HR organization. Also, it's going to allow me the capabilities of collaborating with other groups within HR to, as we handle the more difficult cases, things like disability, things like complaints or ethics or those types of HR-related issues, I'm going to be able to assign tasks out for collaboration perspective. Let's get input. We've got some things that we need to document for this case, and we're going to drive it through this tasking engine. And again, this is very configurable. In fact, we'll a little bit later, we're going to actually show you how an HR business manager can actually build these tasks. We don't have to do anything programmatically, if you will. So I'm going to click on this task. It's going to ask me to record the details of the pet health insurance plan. Okay. In this case, I might add a note. One of the things that we do is we're going to provide a templated interface such that when I communicate with that employee about this particular pet insurance plan, I can select from pre-built templates. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull information from the case. I can add any type of documents any kind of notes that I want to have, right? And then I can also add attachments of any documents that might be appropriate. So let's say, for instance, in this pet health insurance request, they want to know about the plans. So I can send this attachment real easily. I can add this attachment to the pet wellness plan. I can add notes about, from my perspective, from the contact center, some things that they may want to look at. And I can send this off right to the employee. So what this does is, what I did was a couple of things. I was able to pull in a template. I'm also able to drag in the documentation. So a lot of our organizations use SharePoint. They use other document management systems. Someone has a file share out there. So a lot of times when they're corresponding with you from an email or a contact perspective, they're looking at some source of information for a document that they're going to send to you. It's traditionally what we all see, right? What we've done is we've provided an interface to start bringing in this information. So they've got all this rich content knowledge to help them resolve these type of requests. Well, traditionally what they've done is, if you look at any organization like this, there's a lot of cutting and pasting. I've got my email system up. I've got my HRMS system up. I've got my, whatever I'm tracking my cases in, it's in Excel or a database or even traditionally a service desk, right? And they are looking at 4 or 5 different screens, and they're trying to put this together. So one of the things is we bring this all together in one place so that when they're communicating with that customer, right, and I complete this task, I'm going to get to see all of the case details and transactions as it happens. So I send an email back. They look at the form, they fill it back, and they send it back to me. It's coming right back to this case. So I'm going to track all the communication, inbound and outbound, with my HR partners or with my employees. So we get the complete picture, right, of who we're talking to with that employee. We know exactly what we're doing. We made sure from a tasking perspective we follow procedure. And we've got all this rich content and history that we're going to be able to leverage at the press of a button. And so what the big the big picture is I want to make things easier for the agent. We're going to bring them into technology that they're going to be able to leverage, going to make their life a lot easier, and how they handle the volume of transactions. When you hear about open enrollment and these things, there's a spike in transactions, and traditionally sometimes HR goes and borrows other individuals to help, or they go into shutdown mode, and it becomes a big broadcast of what we're going to do. So now we're empowering that person to have all the tools at their fingertips to make these transactions much easier. Okay. Now, along the way, we can browse knowledge base, so they've got a knowledge base if they ever need to look at that, to go back and, is there any content that I need, and I can go open that and review that real quickly here. So all that policy information is right there at the fingertips of the specialist. Going back to this privacy piece and security. So sometimes we're going to have cases that are very involved. And what I mean by involved is we really want to make sure we lock down who has access. If I'm going to collaborate, am I collaborating, and do I need to lock the case down so only certain people have information to it? It might be HIPAA information. It might be any of that we need to make this confidential. So at any point when I'm working a case, I can lock that case down, and it's only going to allow this group and this individual to see that particular case. So think of any type of employee complaints. Maybe an employee just is disgruntled and they want to complain about the organization. HR is that interface rather than the manager. So they go in and they submit their complaint. Well, I want to lock this down because, the person who might be doing the complaining might be in the HR organization themselves. So we are able to lock that down and provide that security. Along the way, obviously, we've got service level agreements. This is going to be new to a lot of HR organizations, but they do want to ensure the timeliness of the response back to the employee. So they're going to have some measures. These are configurable by the HR organizations themselves. It's not very complex way to build these service level agreements, and they're going to be able to build these based on the different offerings. So again, if my offering for benefits from a health perspective is different from country to country, I might have different SLAs for those and how I get that information back. Along the way, one of the things that we talked to just briefly is we do have this concept of the E-form. And so what do I mean by an E-form? So think of when you came onto your organization, or you've had a change in your life cycle with the current company you're with, right? Traditionally when you work with HR, there's some paperwork you have to fill out. And think about the process of filling out that paperwork. They either send that to you in an email, you go to or they direct you to your website, you download the form, right? And you're filling it out by hand. Then you got to scan it, and then you got to fax or email it back. And on their end, think about the specialist end when they get that particular paper document. Now they've got to go take what you wrote down, and then transcribe it to put it in whatever system it belongs into, like maybe a security system or their HR management system. So there are so many chances for errors here. So in this digital transformation, we're going to talk about the concept of e-form. Let's take that paperwork out of the picture. Let's make that electronically available so that the employee or the HR specialist can fill it out. It's going to update that system automatically. And so that we're going to reduce we're going to reduce error, right? Because I'm writing something down, I'm reading it. Who knows how? If you ever look at my handwriting, bless the soul who has to look at that and transcribe that into some system, right? So let's reduce those errors, right? Because that's what drives us crazy as an employee. And no, I didn't sign up for this. This is what I signed up for. So we've got this concept, the electronic form, to help speed that process along and actually ensure that the workflow is being captured the right way. So what I'm going to do, one second, is I navigate my desktop. So we talked a little bit about the concept of being able to point and click. I'm just going to take you through one of our solutions here. So traditionally, when someone adds processes and process flows to a workflow application, there's a lot of programmatic effort that's needed. And what we've done is we've simplified it. There's certain tasks that we know that the organization has to perform, whether it's updating a document, completing an electronic form, emailing an employee some content or some information. So any of those steps that they would provide, if a policy changes, or we've got something similar like maybe this underpayment now applies to union-based employees. I want to make a change. All I need to do is point and click that information and drag it to where in the process it makes a lot of sense, and then make a simple modification. Okay. Any of the data that you've seen, any of the solutions, any of the processes we built in, the HR organizations themselves are going to be able to update that. Okay, so this is going to take a lot of pain away from the IT administrators that are hosting HR today. It's going to give them the flexibility to have the categorizations that they're going to be able to report trending on. Which solutions are used the most? Who's the top 10 employees that contact me the most, or organizations? Who needs my help the most? So these are the kinds of questions that HR is asking, and traditionally it's been very difficult for them to get that information. So from that perspective, and let me see here, come over here, what we're doing today, and you'll see this as for any of those who sign up with the beta program, we're going to provide dashboard and reporting for those HR organizations. And traditionally, they've recorded things, they've got it in Excel, they're doing case counts and who's in agent counts, and they're trying to figure out who's working what, and it's been very difficult. So now we're going to give them some interactive reporting, interactive dashboards, the ability to build their own reports from for those senior technical type HR specialists. They're going to be able to build and roll their own, and they're going to be interactive. So these are the things that VMC is providing, and this is how we're going to bring those specialists. We're going to make their lives easier, through self-service. We're going to enrich how the employees interact with HR. Now we're going to have a great ability to track based on processes and policies and procedures that we put in place. They're going to be able to search for things that they've not had searching capabilities before in the past. They're going to be able to do trending from a reporting perspective. How are we doing? Right? Be able to survey the employees to find out how that interaction's gone, so that they can set up practice and procedures for continual improvement. So all of these are things that we're going to bring to bear. And again, the big thing today that all HR organizations worry about, the workforce is changing. Right, we're getting newer and younger employees, and they're used to doing things in a different way. We want to make sure that we're including them, because they're going to be the holders of our future as far as the organizations go. They're going to be the ones that drive the business. So we want to make sure that we enable those employees to do what they need to do, because the way they work, the way they think, is much different today. We want to make sure that the HR organizations are armed with these tools and solutions, so it helps them do their job better.
Thanks, Hal. So if we can just cut back to the presentation, please.
I think it went away.
Greg, can we flip back to the presentation, please?
Yeah, you just need to stop sharing your screen.
That was always scary. I was ready to do it.
Technology is...
There's a red button around it, right?
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Greg. So really, at this point, we just want to focus on some key takeaways. So if we can just... I think the important thing is that this application, it's market mature, it's been around for 5 years, and it's built on best practices. Colin had engaged with HR consultancy to make sure that this was the case. So it's not just simply extending the platform, but the positive side is that it is built on Remedy, so it's a platform that you know and trust and can ultimately customize upon. And so with that, as part of our initial releases, we're already doing a lot more to enable digital transformation with the inclusion of as MyIT. And so just to talk a very little bit about futures, we're we've got an upcoming beta, and as part of that, the My IT integration with HR case management is really going to, power that digital transformation through. And we even have it available in an on-demand capability right now, so for HR case management. Just for information to get more, the one that I left off, the stupid one, is that if you go to the main BMC website, if you go to www.bmc.com/HRcase, you can see information about that. We've got some videos. There's a C-try buy environment. We've also got our normal documentation page, which is pointing at the 4.5 information as well, and we're going to be, obviously as part of the beta, we're going to be upgrading and updating the 4.6 documentation with the new functionality. There is the beta I mentioned. Literally, there's a very, very small window if you want to join, but you're more than welcome. Please reach out to customer_programs@bmc.com if you so desire as well. And so at that point, really, just want to make sure that you can reach out to all of us. We have our usual capabilities. Also, my name's Steve Terry. My email is steve_terry@bmc.com as well, and I can always redirect those to Hal if they're too difficult as well. So, but we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear about either your current experiences or what you're planning as well. And help you going forward. So I think at that point, I think we're over it.
Steve, there's a few questions if we can ask.
Yeah, I think literally that it's literally QA time on our slide deck as well. So
okay, perfect. One of the questions that came up is what will be the first BMC release version of HR case management?
So we released 4.502 as an on-demand capability. The first on-premise capability is going to be 4.6, which we are currently betaing now. And as long as nobody breaks anything, we're hopeful for the end of this year.
Okay. Another question onto that is, will there be plans to support other languages beyond English?
Absolutely, yes. That's definitely in the roadmap. We're working through that as part of our after 4.6. It'll be part of our next release.
Okay. And another question is, after looking at these screens, what skills are required to customize it?
So, do we mean customize or configure, really?
Customization extend.
So, I mean, it is built on the Remedy platform. So, Remedy application admin skills are really there. But I would say that let's look at configuration first and foremost. And BMC and Column can also help any customer with that regard too.
Yeah, traditionally, just from our customer base, a lot of the customizations when we get to that perspective, it's more into the electronic forms when they're adding workflow and those items. Typically, any of the forms you can add fields. So if you had more employee information, those types of things, you might need that skill set to add those fields. But we do have a layer that's from an administrative perspective that we give to that HR organization that allow them to configure how the look and feel, the skinning and those things that take that away from a traditional developer, makes it easier to support on both ends.
I think one of the other key things is that from a HR perspective, HR organizations like this because of the way it's structured. So they're often happier with give me the capability to standardize and document against a process, a policy. And so a lot of the focus is really about that as an activity, as a project, rather than adding extra, fields as such. So it's really about configuration to the organisation than customization per se. Or that's what I would recommend as a best practice going forward.
Okay, awesome. I have one question. This may be more towards for Hal. Is on the secure set of fields on a form that are encrypted. Are these encrypted all the way back to the database level?
So the simple answer is yes. We'll have that capability on this upcoming release.
Okay, and then attachments are also included in this encrypted to the database level?
Certainly the encryption is, we do encryption in the on-demand environment as part of our policy. I'd need to come back on the from an on-premise perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the encryption is right now today is going to be on or off from a complete perspective, but we're going to offer the additional capability of turning that function on for specific pieces of data. So when you're adding attachments, we'd have to determine, is that attachment something that we want to encrypt or not? Because if it's normal policy, we may not encrypt that to the database. So we'd have to look at that. We'd have to look at the situation and figure a way that we want to handle that.
Okay.
The capability is there.
And as you mentioned, if it's a normal policy, then it would need to be really determined if it needed to be encrypted. Are there any best practices around that to clarify that? What would be encrypted normally or not based on the standard?
So right now we've got standard sets of data, and it's most associated to the employee, and so that would be any of the things that you might see that an employee would have, like salary information. Could be you could have related records where it's family members. Those things might be encrypted, as well as national IDs. So those things, if we need to do the process from a process perspective, we might, those are things that we would necessarily put into that confidential area and then have those locked down from an encryption standpoint.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. If there's any other questions, please ask them via our Q&A tab, and we can ask Steve or Hal. If there aren't any other questions, this webinar is recorded. We will post this within the next week, along with the finalized answers to the Q&A, and you'll be able to review that once it's posted. So last call for questions, otherwise we're going to wrap up this month's session. I have another question, Hal, I think maybe for you. The question is, will any of the HR case management features, confidential information, document management, e-forms, etc., be available within Remedy, and if so, when?
Can I ask you, does that mean Remedy IT Service Management coming back, or just in Remedy? Because all of what we've seen is all in Remedy right now. ITSM, we'll have you have the people in the meeting for this. I think that we've seen, as we've come when we brought case management in, I've seen a lot of aha moments on both sides.
Yeah, I think obviously it's very early days at this moment, but we've seen, as Hal mentioned, we've seen some great features that are already within ITSM. But it's too early to talk specifics on those features that you mentioned, Lance. So, but we are looking at that functionality with interest.
Okay, and the clarification, it is ITSM, so similar within ITSM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the beauty of this, the beauty of how the case management was written, is it's written completely in Remedy workflow, right? So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do we share information? Does this use the foundation data? If I already have IT service management up and I want to install a case, think of case as is a completely built solution that sits on the same platform. So we're able to leverage all that great functionality you have, but we could secure it because it's installed on its own, has its own set of security in those things. So, if you did see some things that you liked in either one of the apps, as we move forward, you're going to see some merging of that functionality to some extent.
Awesome. One of the last questions we'll take today is, can additional templates be added?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's the key tenet of what we're building here is making things easier for that HR organization. So whether it's templates for notification, your SLAs, your templates for your correspondence with your employees, and in certain examples, I've added an interview, a template for conducting an interview with an employee. So anything that they're using today in a paper-based form, I can bring it in as a template. And so they need that communication standardized. It makes it easier for that HR agent to do the things that they need to do.
Awesome. Well, just wanted to thank you, Steve and Hal, for your time today and taking us through this, and wanted to thank everybody that attended our monthly webinar. And this will conclude this month's session. Again, this will be posted to the communities area within 1 week with all the Q&A finalized for you to review. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone.
Now and forever, we bring IT to life.